please welcome Ms. Jenny Fulton and the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hochberg, members of the Board of Directors, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jenny Fulton. I'm the founder and co-owner of Miss Jenny's Pickles. Thank you. Our Pickle World headquarters is located in Kernersville, North Carolina. I am so honored and grateful to be introducing Vice President Biden, our keynote speaker. But before I do, I'd like to share our story. Miss Jenny's Pickles was born after Ashley Furr, my business partner, and I were laid off during the recession. We took a family recipe, and by God's grace, we started our own pickle company. In the beginning, we grew our own cucumbers. We jarred every jar. We formed a partnership with the local YMCA to use their kitchen. We knocked on doors for stores to carry our pickles. And by the end of 2010, we were in 50 stores. By the end of 2011, we were carried in 200 stores. And by the end of 2012, we are now in over 900 stores. Thank you. Thank you. Knowing that 95% of the world's population lives outside the United States.
I would just tell them to sit down.
Yeah, please sit down. I'm sorry. I forgot to tell them. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? I'm so sorry.
I didn't think of it.
I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're with me.
I'm glad you're with me.
I do apologize for that. Let's start over. You ready? Knowing that 95% of the world population lives outside the United States, we knew that exporting was crucial to our success. We have now been exporting for 2 years. We have pickles in China. In fact, they left yesterday, which is our second shipment, Mongolia, the UK, and very soon Canada. In 3 short years, exporting has allowed us to grow our staff to 12 employees. That's 250% increase in employment. And by the end of 2013, we're going to do $1 million in gross sales. And I hope 20% of that's in exporting. Thank you. Early on, I had the pleasure of hearing XM Chairman Fred Hochberg speak in North Carolina. I was so impressed by his remarks to help small businesses like me export that I went running out to the car and I gave him his driver, Chris, a jar of Miss Jenny's Pickles. And today we partner with the XM Bank so that we can let our foreign buyers have terms, because without the XM Bank, we could never do that. And because we have partnered with the XM Bank, we now have our foreign sales increased. And now here's the fun part. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce our luncheon keynote speaker. With President Obama, he has worked the last 4 years to strengthen our economy, to help small businesses like mine, and to open the world to American exports. Please join me in welcoming our Vice President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Right there.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we can outcompete anybody in the world.
Thank you.
This is the reason.
You're
a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Did a great job.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. And Jenny said to me, good luck. I tell you what, man. I was telling Jenny backstage that a lot of you know my home state of Delaware and know it for the chemical industry and the banking industry. But I remind everybody the single biggest industry back in Delaware is agriculture. and pickles are a part of that, and it employs a whole hell of a lot of people, and it generates a whole lot of balance of payment surplus, and an awful lot of it. I kid with people who don't know much about farm economies, and I would challenge you to this. You can go to any, this is obviously an ad lib here, but if you can go to any major city in America, walk into a fancy restaurant and sit down and talk foreign policy with the folks in that restaurant, or I'll take you to a diner in southern Delaware or out in the middle of the Midwest, and you sit down with a bunch of farmers, and they can talk foreign policy, literally. They know more about what's going on because they know the folks they want to sell to over there. And that's what y'all are about. I especially want to start by thanking Fred. Fred has done incredibly important work, and we owe him a great deal. And Fred, we owe you a great deal of help for what you've done to boost American exports. But every single job you've ever taken on, you've done extremely well. And I want you to know, and I mean this seriously, personally, and on behalf of the President, we appreciate your dedication more than you know. And it's an honor also to be with all the rest of you this afternoon, to have a chance to speak to so many people on the front lines of our economic renewal. I understand better than almost anyone, you understand almost better than anyone, the sheer potential this global economy affords the United States of America. And you are well aware of the challenges as well. This is a familiar story. In the post-war era, post-World War II era, we faced a slightly different set of challenges. As the global economy reemerged from the destructions of war, we knew that institutions and rules were needed to navigate through this new world order. And because our parents and grandparents were wise and because they were committed, we did what we've always done best. We exercised our global leadership. We were the driving force behind the creation of the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, as well as the GATT, as well as the World Trade Organization, the architecture for the global economic system. Our companies and our financial institutions from that period through the mid-'80s and '90s were also instrumental in establishing the standards for corporate responsibility and transparency and governance, defining the norms that shape the good business practices in an increasingly global economy. And thanks to all of you participating in that global economy, you all know better than most that this is self-evident. That while many Americans, too many Americans, to those institutions and norms seem to be abstract, but not to all of you. They're what helped us grow the largest, most successful middle class in the history of the world. They set the rules of the road that led to economic expansion and shared prosperity in the United States and throughout the world. We didn't just stumble upon our economic destiny, we shaped it. We shaped our economic destiny. And now we have to reshape it. It's a different world. My colleagues are always kidding me, and Fred's heard me say this, for quoting Irish poets all the time. They think I do it because I'm Irish. I don't do it for that reason. I do it because they're the best poets. There's a poem. There was a poem that Yeats wrote called Easter Sunday 1916 about his Ireland after the first rising. That's what we Irish Catholic called the last time we tried to get rid of the British. But all kidding aside, he wrote a poem called Easter Sunday 1916. He used a line in there that I think better describes the state of the world today than it described his Ireland in Easter Sunday 1916. He said, all's changed utterly. A terrible beauty has been born. All's changed. In the last decade, all's changed in terms of the globalization of the world economy, in terms of the rules of the road, or lack of the rules of the road, in terms of watching emerging nations trying to figure out where they fit and how we fit relative to them, and so on. And so these institutions, that the affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and the rules that work so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened, and some have to be changed. So we have to do what we do best. We have to lead. We have to lead. We have to update the global rules of the road. We have to do it in a way that maximizes benefits for everyone, because obviously it's overwhelmingly in our interest. This is not a zero-sum game. It's overwhelmingly in our interest that China prosper, that Mongolia prosper, that nations big and large, East and West, in Latin America and in Africa prosper. Because, you know that old expression, they asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks. He said, that's where the money is. We want everybody to have a little money to make sure they can buy American products. So the paradox, so we don't view, the President and I and Fred, we don't view economic growth as a zero-sum game here, that somehow we grow and it's not in our interest if other major powers grow as well. That's the paradox of this new global order. So much of our success depends on the success of those with whom we compete. That's the challenge the President and I and the entire administration take very seriously. It's been the center of our economic philosophy from the day we took office. From our perspective, there are two things that we must do abroad to ensure our strength at home. First, we have to reorient our focus not just toward the greatest threats, but toward the greatest opportunities that exist for us. And second, we have to level the playing field, an old phrase that's almost overused over the last 20 years, but it's true. We have to level the playing field so that American companies and workers can compete in the world, that the competition is fair and it's healthy. To the first point, we came into office facing the worst financial recession since the Great Depression. We had to unfreeze the credit markets, reform the financial system, inject demand back into the economy. And while this agenda is far from complete, we've made significant progress with all of your help. The economy has now added private sector jobs every month, disappointing this month, but they nonetheless added jobs. Even so, we've still found that there's a need for an ambitious affirmative agenda. We strengthened and signed 3 free trade agreements. We're making historic progress toward meeting our incredibly ambitious goal of doubling American exports, adding 2 million export-supported jobs by the end of 2014. We reoriented our development strategy to focus on sustainable economic growth. But there's so much more we have to do. In the second term, the President and I believe we have to take up the task of updating the international economic architecture that serves as a foundation and must serve as a foundation for long-term American economic growth. That's one of the reasons we've dedicated so much attention to Asia. We're proud of the role we've played for decades ensuring stability and security in the Asian-Pacific region. When I had number of my long meetings over a period of 10 days, and 5 in China and 5 here with President Xi, because President Hu and President Obama wanted us to establish a relationship. It was fascinating. They asked about how we viewed ourselves. I said, we are a Pacific power. We are a Pacific power. We will remain a Pacific power. And he and others acknowledged that our presence, our influence in the region since World War II is one of the reasons why China has been able to expand in economic growth in terms and conditions of stability. The world's economic engine has shifted eastward, and we know that it is in Asia where much of the opportunity of the 21st century will be found. Economically, Asia already accounts for more than 1/4 of the global GDP. Over the next 5 years, the Asian Pacific may account for as much as 60% of the global growth. And that's why, through the efforts like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, our work in APEC, our strategic and economic dialogues with the Chinese, Indians, and others, and our enhanced engagement in Southeast Asia, we're continuing to assert ourselves as a resident economic power in the region. Think about the opportunity that the Trans-Pacific Partnership alone represents. 11 members comprising 658 million people with a combined economic output of $20.5 trillion per year. We've been working to forge an agreement that will bring together economies from across the Pacific, developed and developing alike. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is perhaps the most ambitious trade negotiation underway in the world. It will break new ground on important issues, from the challenges of state-owned enterprises to ensuring the free flow of data across borders, to enhancing regional supply chains, to ensuring transparency and cutting red tape. We're also working to strengthen protections for labor and the environment. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is open to countries willing to meet our ambition. Since we started these negotiations, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mexico, Canada, all have joined the negotiations. And we continue to welcome other countries, the interest of other countries, including Japan. That was a source of discussion when the Prime Minister was here several weeks ago. Our goal is for high standards for the Trans-Pacific Partnership to enter the bloodstream of the global system and improve the rules and norms. And by the way, it ends up affecting conduct in those countries as well. As the President and others, the Trans-Pacific Partnership leaders have clearly stated we intend to conclude the negotiations this year. Our economic engagement with Europe, by the way, is no less ambitious. We've built especially deep and robust security institutions that span the Atlantic. And now it's time for that economic cooperation to catch up and sink deeper roots. Because the truth is, the United States and the European Union are each other's most important trading partners, and will remain so. The U.S. and EU commercial relationship today exceeds $5 trillion, far and away the world's largest. But we know, we can do more. That's why we've announced negotiations on the new Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. This is a big opportunity. A new partnership can build on what's already our leading export market, supporting more than an estimated 2.4 million well-paying American jobs. But this is not purely about basic economic gains. It's about the possibility to drive progress together on shared priorities. That's why we have an ambitious agenda, not only to eliminate tariffs, but also to tackle costly so-called behind-the-border barriers to the flow of goods and services, improve transparency, and develop rules and principles that promote global competitiveness. Again, I'll keep saying this. When I was in China, speaking at the Great Hall of the People, and they were talking about our economy, I've made it clear when I was recently in Germany with the Chancellor, and in Paris with the President, and in England with the Prime Minister, we Americans, we welcome competition. It's stamped into our DNA. It is not a problem. It is not a problem, period. And that's the fundamental point with regard to both of these trade agreements. What we're talking about is shaping a new standard that can become the metric by which all future trade agreements are measured. And that's the first part of the question. The second is something I know this audience understands well. I don't have to tell you, as I've just stated, about competition. You're out there fighting every single day. You know that genuine competition pushes our companies and our people to perform better. Genuine competition. America welcomes it. As I said, it's stitched into the very fabric of our society, our economic system. And the benefits of healthy competition require, though, a level playing field, or at least a close similarity to a level playing field. We even win when the field isn't quite level. But literally, I mean this sincerely, this is not hyperbole. When the field is level, American workers, the American capitalist system, the American market system, the American ingenuity can and does compete with anyone in the world on any level. I overwhelming confidence in the competitive capacity of the American worker. They are the most productive workers in the world today. But we will not fully realize our potential if the game is rigged. And there's a lot of rigging going on right now. That's why we're troubled by state-owned, so-called national champion competitors that enjoy subsidized financing, cheap inputs, artificially inflating their competitiveness, by restricting foreign investments or trade designed to induce American companies to transfer their technology, their manufacturing, as a condition of market access, by procurement rules that unfairly keep American companies from the chance to compete, by governments that steal our intellectual property to benefit favored companies increasingly. Increasingly, we're seeing wholesale theft of confidential business information and proprietary technologies through cyber intrusion. And that has to stop. It has to stop. And as I point out when I travel in other countries, and I've traveled about 700,000 miles worth of other countries in the last 4.5 years, I really mean this. When I talk to the leaders of other countries about the theft of intellectual property, when I talk to them about these issues, I point out that they are denying their own people the promise of being able to become more competitive, because the indigenous capacity to grow creatively is stifled when they engage in the theft of intellectual property. These are serious challenges, and in many ways, they're growing challenges, and we're taking them on each in turn. We're enforcing trade rules that have already on the books, bringing a record number of cases to the WTO, crafting new rules and setting ambitious standards for global trade, and working multilaterally to strengthen global growth and global financial systems. And we're fighting for American companies. I want to say to the press here, I make no apology when I travel abroad to make the case for American companies. No apology. Part of our obligation is, in a sense, to be an extended chamber of commerce to make sure American companies get an even shot. That is part of our responsibility, in our view. We're fighting for American companies doing the hard, grinding, daily work of economic diplomacy. These efforts, large and small, are mostly outside the public eye, but they pay off. Just in the last few days, the USDA opened Taiwan's $8 million fresh potato market to our Colorado farmers. The Commerce Department is helping increase trade with Mongolia, where U.S. exports have grown by more than 1,500% in 4 years. The State Department's economic dialogue with the United Arab Emirates will build on our $20 billion exports last year. And we've celebrated XM's record-breaking deal this year, a $5 billion loan that will support more than 18,000 American jobs. These efforts involve everyone, from the president on down. Last year, I personally sat with Xi at the last minute, hammering out deals to open China's auto insurance market and to bust the quota that unfairly limits Chinese imports of American movies, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Because everybody has to understand, you want to play on the world stage, you got to play by the rules. You know, I have, as I said, I've traveled the world for the president over the last 4 years, and everywhere I go, I, along with everyone else, fights for America's economic interest. But in a way, in many of the toughest markets, including China and Russia, I've also made the case, as I mentioned before, that publicly and privately, that an open economy and a level playing field is not just in our interest, it's overwhelmingly in their interest to develop their economies and develop their countries. An open, innovative, dynamic economic system requires institutions that are open, free, transparent, and fair as well. When countries stick to the rules of the road globally, they tend to build better institutions at home. This requires the kind of reforms that can secure any country's long-term stability and prosperity. That's how a level playing field in a global economy supports values we'd like to see everywhere: free exchange of ideas, free enterprise, transparency, anti-corruption, the rule of law. We take these issues very seriously. We also take seriously the need to attract global investment to the United States. In the past, that's been an easy sales pitch. America has long had, still has, the most productive workers in the world, as I mentioned before. We have the best research universities in the world. We have a rule of law. We honor contracts and legal obligations. We protect intellectual property. But it's about more than just our legal structures. It's about our culture of innovation. I don't know of any other country in the world, including our European partners, that would actually encourage its people to challenge orthodoxy. We have a lot of trouble with our education system we're trying to improve. But the one thing our system, for all its foibles, stands out. No matter what the school, children are encouraged to challenge orthodoxy, not accept it. In fact, we don't just encourage it, we teach it. Steve Jobs, in that famous exchange with a student at Stanford, said, "What do I have to be more like, do to be more like you?" Paraphrasing, he said, "Think different." You can't think different in a country where you can't speak freely. You can't think different in a country where you are not allowed to challenge the orthodoxy. You can't think different in a country that limits what you can be engaged in. That's why I'm so optimistic about our future, because I believe in the 21st century the true wealth of a nation is found in the creative mind of its people and their ability to innovate, to develop technologies that not only spawn new products, but entire new industries. More than any other country, the United States of America is hardwired for innovation. It has enabled generation after generation of Americans to give life to world-changing ideas, from the cotton gin to the airplane to the microchip to the internet, and the list could go on and on and on. These accomplishments were made possible by the boundless capacity of the American people and the immigrants who constantly enrich and revitalize our national fabric. And that, more than anything, is why I truly believe we're better positioned than any country in the world to be the leading economy of the 21st century. At the same time, we know that things are changing. We have to make sure we maintain our edge. We need to make sure we are fully equipped for the coming competition. And that takes me to the last point. That's why we're investing so much in education. That's why we think it's so critical. That's why we're making early education, STEM education, such a high priority. That's why we made investments in research and development so critical to and central to our economic agenda. That's where we're committed to investing in the kind of cutting-edge technologies that will help us ensure that the new thing, which is now an old phrase, is not just imagined here, but is manufactured here. And that's why we insist on updating our infrastructure so we can accommodate the rapidly changing world. Not only will we encourage businesses to stay in America and invest in America, it will create jobs on the scale we require right now. We also think it's essential to reform the immigration system. Every year, we, in a sense, export. Every year, our university system generates roughly 40,000 people with PhDs and master's degrees in areas in science and technology that we need. And we make sure they're promptly escorted back to their country. At the very same time, we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on STEM education. It makes no sense, in my humble opinion. Sending them back to their country denies them the visa even when they have a job waiting for them. Instead of sending them home, we should be stamping a green card or the diploma as they walk across the stage. Literally. I mean this literally. Not figuratively. Literally. If they have a job here, they should be able to stay here. We should want them here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've also proposed adding additional H-1B visas so that American employers can hire the best and the brightest no matter where they come from if they can't be found here. You know, it's in very real terms, our future national competitiveness can be tied to getting a comprehensive education reform bill on the President's desk. Those are the things that we're doing right now. Infrastructure, investment in innovative technologies, education, and immigration. These are the things, like, for example, when the President announced the $100 million, we had our way, it would be $1 billion project to map the human brain. That's not some idle exercise, as I watch some of these talk show guys thinking, we should scan their brains. But I'm serious. It's amazing. Since when did we become the nation that, instead of embracing science and believing that we can solve any problem and extending ourselves, since when is that anti-competitive or anti-business or liberal? Ladies and gentlemen, these are the things we're doing right now to continue to make America a place where foreign companies will want to put down roots. We have one of the most open economies in the world, so we know there are great opportunities for investment in the United States of America. And we're determined to make sure foreign investors know about them as well. That's why, for the first time ever, we have an initiative that's entirely dedicated to helping foreign companies that want to invest in America to figure out how to do so. It's very much in our interest for that to happen. Each of these actions will have another effect, which is maybe the most important of all, the most important to do. And I think this audience probably understands it. That is, I think they'll help grow the base of American exports and exporting companies that include the type of products and services that the U.S. that are U.S. strengths, but aren't exported at the rate they could be. It also includes encouraging more first-rate exporters in the United States. Because, as all of you know, reaching the 95% of the consumers who live beyond our borders is not merely an opportunity for American companies. More and more, it's a necessity for American companies. We've already made incredible progress in that front. Last year, U.S. exports hit an all-time record of $2.2 trillion. Without question, this export growth has contributed to America's creating more than 6 million jobs over the past 30 months. And I believe if we get it right, we can achieve even greater results. I absolutely, firmly believe we can do this. I know I'm referred to in the White House as the White House optimist. You know, I read that all the time. Well, it's like I'm the new guy, as my grandfather would say, like I just fell off the turnip truck yesterday. In case you haven't noticed, I've been there longer than any of them. And I hope you all haven't noticed that, but I'm afraid it's self-evident. But I'm optimistic, not out of naivete. I know the history of the journey of this country. History of the journey of this country is every single challenge. We've unleashed the American people, and all of you have never failed to be met, giving the American people half a chance. We have big challenges we have to attend to, but we're attending to them. As long as we are in the White House, I think we'll continue to attend to them, and I expect Democrat or Republican who follows will have no choice but to attend to them. The truth is, the reason America has been a global leader for so long is not luck. It's not a matter of chance. It's a matter of effort. It's a matter of thinking about the next step. It's a matter of understanding how much it matters. We've always risen to the challenge. That's who we've always been, as I said at the outset. It's stamped into our DNA. It's why so many people still, as corny as it sounds, why so many people still want to come to the United States. So we'll rise to this challenge, and hopefully we'll be led by all of you in this room. As I've told many foreign leaders, it's never, never, never been a good bet to bet against America. I mean that sincerely. Never, never, never a good bet to bet against America. And the reason it's not is because of all of you in this room. Fred, you're doing a great job. All of you are in this for yourselves and for your country. And I just think the next 20 years, we have a chance to leave our kids and our grandkids in a position where they are clearly, unequivocally better positioned and remain better positioned than any country in the world to be the leading economy in the world. Thank you all very much for listening, and I appreciate being with you. Thank you.
Fred, thanks. Thank you very much.